All right, welcome everybody to our training today. So I'm Trevor, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about taxes and your Volusion website, and not even just Volusion, any website for that matter. I want to talk about taxes because this time of year, I mean, it's actually the first week of March here, and usually this is the time of year when my clients start to email me, especially my clients that have worked with me a lot in 2016, and they say, "Hey, Trevor, what do I need to do my taxes for the business?" Now, if you don't come from an accounting background or you don't have someone who does a lot of accounting for you, a CPA or an accountant, whatever, you may be clueless about really what are the tax implications of my business. And so I want to chat a little bit about those and just make sure you guys are aware of, maybe some things you want to keep track of for your taxes, what you'll need from our company, because I've had a few of you guys actually ask me for tax documents, and we don't send our clients any tax documents. That's something you would handle on your own, so I'll explain more about why that is. But let's first talk about tax implications here. When you own a business, and I know this is elementary to a lot of you guys, but bear with me for a sec. Some of you guys don't know this as well as others. When you own a business, you're in a position where if that business makes money and is profitable, you're going to have to pay some tax on your profitability. If your business is not profitable and ends up losing money, you'll have some tax benefit in a situation like that. Some deduction that will hopefully go against your tax liability for any other income and lessen how much you have to pay or provide you a greater tax refund. I'll give you an example. I had a company a few years ago that had done real well for a lot of years, and then for whatever reason, I won't go into the details of it, the revenues dried up. And let's just make this very simple first. I guess before I tell that story, let's just talk about revenues and expenses. Okay, somebody define revenue for me, and somebody define expense. What's revenue mean? In simple terms, when I talk about revenue into a company, what are we talking about? Yeah, sales. Money paid to you, right? However you want to define that. Or, money into the business. That's revenue, right? Okay. So what's an expense then? Money that goes out. Costs of any kind, right? Pretty simple. Well, what's profit then or loss? So the difference between the two. So revenue minus expense is going to give you profit or loss, right? If your revenues exceed your expenses, you have a profit. If your expenses exceed your revenues, you have a loss on the business. Now let's define a few of these things. In an internet business, what could your revenues be? Where do our revenues come from in an internet business? Let's define that here. From where? How about eBay sales, right? How about website sales? Wouldn't that be revenue? How about affiliate ad commissions? Or Google, maybe we're talking about Google AdSense commissions, right? All of that represents money that would come in, right? We all pretty clear on that? And my advice to you guys as you're running one of these internet businesses, you ought to be tallying this money up every single month and having like a monthly statement for yourself. I think that's good business practice in general, right? For the month of February of 2017, we'll say this internet business had $1,000 in eBay sales, $500 in website sales, 150 in affiliate commissions, and we'll say 75 in Google AdSense commissions. Okay? Well, at that point, what's our total revenue? Total revenue for that month is what? 1,500, 1,650, 1,725. Right? Check my math. 1,725? Yeah. Right? They always say don't ever do math like this in front of a lot of people while you're doing a presentation, so you don't look like an idiot, maybe. I should have my calculator right here. 1,725 though, right? Okay. So 1,725 it is for revenue that month. Okay, well, so let's talk about expenses for an internet business for a sec. And then I'll get to my story. What kind of expenses would an internet business have? Think about your own. You got an eBay business, you got a website business. Maybe you're doing some affiliate marketing, some link posting, some blogging. Where are your expenses? All right, so fees first. I think that's good, especially on an eBay business. We'll say eBay fees. Also PayPal fees, right? What else? If I make a drop shipping sale, let's say, so in this case, I'm saying I made $1,000 well, I had $1,000 in sales on eBay. So I'm paying eBay their 10%, right? I'm paying PayPal their 3%. So we'll say in this case, $100 goes to eBay. We'll say $30. Whoops. 30 goes to PayPal. Yeah, exactly, Susan. Your cost of goods sold, your product cost. COGS, your COGS, or your cost of goods sold. So that would be your, well, let me do this. Let me do it this way. Product cost. Let me do it this way. The minus is confusing there, or product cost. Okay, so let's say, I had $600 in product cost. Right? That's like products from my drop shipper that I'm spending money on. Because when I'm buying from a drop shipper, aren't I actually buying from them? Maybe at a cheaper price, but I'm still buying the product. So there we go. We got to calculate that, right? $600 in product cost. And maybe that's true of my website sales too. So maybe this is just for eBay. But then on my website sales, website, because I made $500 in website sales, so maybe that cost me, well, I don't know, $200 in product cost, right? Maybe some inventory if you're buying inventory, sure. How about this one? For those of you guys who own a website, hosting is usually an expense, right? Often Volusion sites are in the neighborhood of $40 a month. So we'll say for this month we paid $40 in hosting. And whatever else. I mean, these are some of the main ones. But you may have other costs. Maybe you ran to the store because you need to pick up toner for the printer, or maybe you had to buy some paper for the printer, and you're using most of that for the business. You could maybe expense that, right? How about your cell phone? Maybe you're spending $100 a month on cell phone expense. Now you'll say to me, Trevor, I don't use my cell phone the whole time for the business, but do you use it for some? Because if you do, there's probably a reason to deduct it, to make it an expense. Now, it's a weird concept, isn't it? But we actually like expenses in a way when it comes to accounting, doesn't it? Because what happens if I have lots of expense? What does lots of expense do to my profit or loss for the month? It decreases my profit, doesn't it? Now, why in the world would I want decrease profit? That doesn't make any sense, right? Aren't we in this business to make as much money as we can? What's the point of having less profit? Well, come tax time, we like less profit, don't we? Because if we can show the government that we made less on our business, and it's illegal, okay, so these need to be legit expenses. That's why you hear of companies getting into trouble that make up fake expenses and when they don't really exist, so they don't have to pay as much in taxes. But if I can show more expense, that lessens how much I actually made from the business and therefore lessens the amount of tax I actually pay. That's a very simple rule in accounting. Does that mean you can make up fake expenses? Of course not. And by the way, guys, I'm no accountant. I'm not a CPA. You know, I've got a degree in finance, but that doesn't mean I'm licensed to give financial or accounting advice. So take this for what it's worth. My advice is always talk to an accountant who is certified and licensed. But I want to just teach you guys the basics so you understand, you know, when March rolls around and you're trying to figure out taxes for your business, you kind of have an idea of what you're doing. Okay, so let's just run the numbers here, okay? Let's run the numbers. So we're at $17.25 in revenue for this business for the month. You know, maybe we had some other expense, you know, paper and office supplies or whatever. We'll say that was 150 or 150 for the month. So let's add up all of our expense. So we've got 100 plus 30 plus 600 plus 200 plus 40 plus 100 plus 150. Check my math on it, but I get 1220 in expense. Am I right on that? Are you guys getting that same figure? All right, let me just check again. 6, 8, 9, 930, 970, 1070, 1170. Yeah, at 1220. I think I'm right on that. Okay. Okay, so if revenue is 1725 and expenses for the month are 1220, what was our profit? In this case, profit of 505. Okay, and we'll pretend like that is for the month of February. Now, I would do this every single month of the year, so that when tax time rolls around and your accountant needs to do some accounting for your company, or you do your own accounting, you can give your accountant a profit and loss statement, a P&L, and it should be very simple for an internet business. So you could say for, you know, we'll fast forward. We'll say this is for fiscal year 2017. I know we're only in March now, but we'll say 2017 is come and gone. You can show how much revenue your company had. You can show all your expenses and their categories, because in most cases, when you file a tax return, you need to actually show all your categories of expenses. You can't just say, well, hey, I made $20,000 in sales and I had $5,000 in expense, so my profit was 15 grand. You can't say that. You can say that, but you need to be clear about what those expenses are. You need to have some categories. How much was hosting? How much was for product cost? How much was for office supplies? How much was for your phone or your internet? Right? Your internet could be another thing that you're taking a deduction on. What was it now? 4 years ago, my wife needed a new computer, and she helps with the business, and we bought this computer, and it was, you know, $1,800, $1,900, and we expensed it all. That was all an expense. Now, why is that so exciting that I can take a computer and expense it like that? Well, the beautiful thing is, you know, we took that $1,900 and put it against our revenue, and it shows that we made less. And if we show we make less, guys, what have we all talked about? What happens on that? we don't pay as much tax, right? Let's do an example. Let's say for this month, I made 505 for this for February, we'll say, right? So I would be paying tax on this. I would declare to the government I made $505, and I would have to pay tax on that. Well, what if in this month, what if we also bought a computer, right? And we're going to say that was a $1,900 expense. How does that change our taxes? Well, instead of a $505 profit, let's X that out, okay? Really, we have a $1,395 loss. And there you hit it right on the head, Jeff. Now, a lot of you guys, when you're working a normal job, you get a tax refund because you're paying too much in every month, and so when you do your taxes, you get paid back from federal and state. Well, this is what this does for you. If I can show in my business over the course of a year that I've lost money, well, not only am I not going to pay tax on that loss, right? The government doesn't tax me on negative money. Like, if this February were our entire year and I lost $1,395, well, the cool thing is that helps offset your other tax liability. So let's say from your normal job, let's say you made whatever, $75,000 from your normal job. Well, you would pay tax on that, but if you can show a loss from your company, you wouldn't pay tax on $75,000. You would pay tax on less than that because you showed a loss on your company. Now, there's some intricacies there that I'm not going to get into, and some accounting law and how you would actually deduct certain things. Like, for example, a lot of you guys will say, well, hey, Trevor, what I invested, whatever it is, $10,000 into your coaching program, right? Is that an expense? It is, but it's a certain type of expense. And so I would recommend you talk to your accountant about how to deduct that. I don't think you take the whole $10,000 and put it up against your revenue for that first year. I think you do part of it, and then you do like part of it the next. I can't remember how it works exactly, but it is a tax deduction of some kind. So then a lot of my clients will say, well, I guess you guys owe me some sort of tax document. We don't. It's up to you to keep track of your contract, and that acts as your tax document. So when you set up with us, usually you have some sort of a contract, and it might not be like a physical copy. Maybe it was something you signed online or something. Well, you should have a copy of that somewhere. If you don't, you can contact our support department, and they can get you a copy of it. But if the IRS ever looked at your tax return and questioned whether or not it was legit or not, well, you could produce that contract and say, well, you bet it was legit. Here it is. This is what I paid for. That $5,000 wasn't to play golf all year long, or $10,000 or whatever it was you invested. That $10,000 wasn't for new furniture in my house, and I was lying to the IRS. This you could prove it to the IRS. This is from a business that I was setting up. So your legal tax document would be your contract. So I want to make that clear to you guys, because I get that question a lot. Hey, send me a 1099, my clients will ask. We don't send our clients 1099s. Your tax document is your contract, okay? So just to be clear on that. Questions about that, guys, or does that kind of make sense at this point? Now, once I can show what my 2016 profit and losses for my business, I can either go file that tax return by myself, or I can have an accountant do it. Some of you guys probably use accountants. Some of you guys maybe do it yourself. I, for years, have used an accountant because I feel like it's easier for me. Sometimes I have expenses that I'm not sure are totally deductible. There's lots of little nuances in the tax code. The tax code is not simple. And I like the point that was made here in chat that you need to be honest here, right? People get into trouble over lying on their tax returns all the time, don't they? We hear about it all the time. Flip on the news. Tax evasion, tax fraud, right? Wasn't that Enron years ago that got in big trouble for all their dishonesty on their financial reporting? People are dishonest in their financial reporting so that they can pay fewer taxes, but it's wrong. And so I'm going to advocate today that you're honest in your tax return here. And sometimes it's tempting to inflate your expenses a little bit, right? Because if I make enough money and I make $125,000 this year in my business, I know I have to pay tax on all of that. And so it's tempting then to say, well, what can I do? What can I buy right now to show that I made fewer dollars so I don't have to pay as much in tax? Right? If you get making big sums of money like that, my advice to you is please be using an accountant, because they can help you come up with strategies to lessen your tax liability, honest strategies, legal strategies, the types of strategies that don't get you guys in trouble. You'll be grateful long term for filing honest tax returns. I don't need to lecture you guys about that. I think most of you guys understand that that's pretty important. On a website though, since this is a Volusion training and a website development training, most website expenses are pretty straightforward. Did you pay to have it designed or set up? If you did, that's a deductible expense, right? That's something that you should include on your report. Did you buy a domain name? That's an expense. What did you pay for hosting all year? That's an expense. Did you pay for any marketing? That's an expense. Right? These are all expenses that can add up. And so the big silver lining is, and this goes back to my original story I was going to tell. I'll be really brief and then we'll finish up. I had a company that one year, I had this for probably, this little company I probably had for 3 or 4 years, something like that, and was profitable every single year. And then one year had something catastrophic happen and took a big loss on it. Okay, I won't go into the details of what happened, but the bottom line is I showed whatever it was. I think it was like a $15,000 or $20,000 loss. The only silver lining in that is I remember when I reported that loss to my accountant that year, that loss got me back an extra, I can't remember what it was, $2,000 or $3,000. It was more than that. It might have been more like $4,500. It got me back a bunch of extra money from the government because I was able to show that big loss on my business. It lessened my tax liability, and I actually got back an extra few $1,000s. There was my silver lining. Now, do any of us like to lose money in our business? Of course not. But if you want to look at the positive side, it'll lessen your tax liability, and that's a good thing, right? That might be the only silver lining when you're talking about taking a loss on a business. Now, the other thing is you can't continually just take losses on your company and get the benefit. I can't remember what the rule is, and maybe a consult an accountant about this, but I think it's like 3 years. If you take a loss on your business 3 straight years, it turns out it's not really a business. It's classified more as a hobby, and you can't continually take those tax benefits. So it's okay to take a loss your first year. I think even your second, but you got to be more careful on your third, because I think at that point the government says, well, hey, if you're not making money by that point, how legit of a business is this? It's probably a bit more like a hobby. So anyway, okay, questions, guys? Any questions about this before we finish up? I hope this was helpful and timely for this time of year. If you email me asking for a 1099 or some other tax form, I'll probably direct you to this training and say, nope, use your contract, because that is your tax form. I think to a lot of you guys, this stuff is probably pretty straightforward. Okay, so I'll give you a minute. I think I'm actually just going to turn off the recording. If you're watching this recorded, thanks for being with us, and if you're live, I'll stick around here for just another minute.